They said she couldn't win on clay, but Eala responded immediately, defeating Julia Grabber in straight sets, pushing Elena Ostapenko to the brink, and earning her place in Stuttgart the hard way. And now the draw has delivered something remarkable. Because what the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix has produced isn't just a first-round match. It's a moment. The kind of moment that feels almost too perfect to be real. Too layered, too symbolic. The kind of matchup that if you wrote it into a script, people would call unrealistic. Yet it's actually happening. Monday, April 13th, indoor clay at the Porsche Arena in Stuttgart. Eala versus Leylah Fernandez. Philippines versus Canada. Filipino heritage on both sides of the net. Lefty versus lefty. On one side, Eala, the homegrown Filipina talent developed through the Rafa Nadal Academy and shaped by years of relentless work, now stepping onto the biggest stage of her career. And on the other side, Fernandez, the Filipino-Canadian prodigy who stunned the world with her run to the US Open final at just 18 years old, announcing herself as one of the fiercest competitors on tour. Same roots, different journeys, separated by ranking, by experience, by resume. And that resume matters because if anyone is tempted to underestimate Leylah Fernandez even for a second, they're making a serious mistake. She's not just another name in the draw. She's a 5-time WTA champion, 5 titles. That's not potential, that's proof. She has won in Monterrey twice, lifted trophies in Hong Kong and Washington, including a WTA 500 title, building her career on resilience, speed, and the ability to absorb pressure and redirect it with precision. And what makes this clash so compelling is that for all of Fernandez's achievements and experience on the biggest stages, Eala is arriving with something equally dangerous: momentum, belief, and a game that is evolving in real time. This isn't just a first-round match. It's a collision of timelines. One player already established, one player rising quickly enough to disrupt the structure around her, and when those two paths meet on a surface that demands precision, courage, and adaptability, anything can happen. Fernandez has lifted trophies across multiple continents, has gone places on the WTA tour that Eala is still chasing, and she is not just experienced, she is battle-tested. At 18 years old, she entered the US Open in 2021 and produced one of the most unforgettable runs in recent tennis history, defeating elite players like Naomi Osaka, Angelique Kerber, Elina Svitolina, and Aryna Sabalenka back-to-back on her way to the final. She didn't just arrive on the big stage, she embraced it, and that run alone would define most careers. But for Fernandez, it became the foundation. Her career-high ranking of world number 13, multiple WTA titles across surfaces, and her reputation for rising under pressure are not just achievements. They are proof of survival at the highest level, and she is coached by her father, Jorge Fernandez, who has built her game from the ground up, instilling a philosophy based on aggression, variation, and the ability to elevate in defining moments. And then there is the layer that changes everything: her heritage. Because Fernandez is Filipino-Canadian, her mother Irene carries Filipino roots, connecting her directly to the same national identity that fuels Eala's rise. And that is what transforms this match. Because when Leylah Fernandez steps onto the court against Eala at the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix, it will not just be a first-round clash, it will be something the sport has never witnessed before. Two players with Filipino blood, two different journeys, one shared cultural thread meeting on indoor clay in Germany, with a potential showdown against Jasmine Paolini waiting in the next round. And that is not just competition, that is history. Because the support behind Eala, the so-called Eala army, does not function like a typical crowd. They do not boo, they do not disrespect, but they also do not divide their loyalty. And on this stage, in this moment, with everything that has been building behind her, that energy, that belief, that unwavering support leans toward one name: Eala. Now this is where the matchup shifts from emotional to intellectually fascinating. Because when Eala faces Leylah Fernandez, you are not just watching two players compete, you are watching a mirror. Both are left-handed. And in professional tennis that already makes them rare, roughly 10% of the tour. But when two lefties meet, everything changes. The entire geometry of the court flips, and the patterns they have spent years perfecting against right-handers are neutralized. That wide slice serve on the ad court, usually dragging a right-hander off the court, now curves directly into the opponent's forehand. That heavy cross-court forehand that typically targets a weaker backhand now lands on strength instead of weakness, and suddenly their default weapons do not create the same damage. So what happens is that they must rebuild their tactics in real time, making it less about patterns and more about problem solving. Less about repetition and more about adaptation, turning the match into a chess battle where both players are using the same pieces. And that is what makes this such a defining test for Eala, because in many ways, Fernandez represents a glimpse into her potential future, a version of what Eala could become in 2 or 3 years. The gap is clear. Fernandez is 23 while Eala is 20. Fernandez has 5 WTA titles while Eala is still chasing her first. Fernandez has played and nearly won a Grand Slam final and has logged over 300 professional wins. And that is not a small difference. It is experience built under the brightest lights in the sport. But this is where the narrative shifts, because while the experience gap is real, the trajectory tells a different story. Coming into the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix, Fernandez's 2026 season has been difficult, with multiple early exits across Brisbane, Adelaide, the Australian Open, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Dubai, Indian Wells, and Miami. And that is not the form of a player in rhythm. It is a player searching, adjusting, and trying to rediscover timing, confidence, and identity on court. Because tennis at this level is brutally honest, and when your margin disappears, everything is exposed, and right now, Fernandez is fighting to recapture the level that once made her a top 1-5 player and one of the most dangerous competitors on tour. This creates a fascinating tension going into the match. One player rising fast, building momentum and evolving in real time, and one player experienced and proven but currently trying to find her peak again. And when those forces collide on a surface that demands precision, adaptability, and mental clarity, the outcome becomes unpredictable. The confidence that once carried Fernandez through her legendary US Open battles against players like Naomi Osaka and Aryna Sabalenka has not disappeared, but right now it is flickering. Not gone, just unstable. Meanwhile, Alex Eala arrives in Stuttgart with something far more dangerous than reputation: momentum. With a strong 2026 record, deep runs in major tournaments, a career-high ranking, and victories over serious opponents like Donna Vekic, Jasmine Paolini, and Diana Yastremska, along with a razor-close battle against Elena Ostapenko on clay that came down to just a handful of points. The numbers tell a clear story. The form belongs to Eala. The momentum belongs to Eala, and perhaps most importantly, the hunger belongs to Eala. As she chases that first WTA title, that breakthrough moment, that validation. And in tennis, hunger is something even elite talent struggles to contain. But here is the danger. Because even out of form, Fernandez is still Fernandez. Her forehand is not just powerful but precise, capable of changing direction mid-swing. Her backhand creates unnatural angles. Her movement, despite her smaller frame, is explosive, efficient, and relentless, covering the court like someone much taller. Because every step is optimized, and then there is her fire. The same fire that lit up New York in 2021. The same fire that produced those iconic celebrations and momentum swings. That fire does not disappear, it simply waits. And a player like Leylah Fernandez does not need perfect form. She needs a spark, one early break, one emotional surge, one forehand clipping the line, and suddenly her record means nothing, and the Grand Slam finalist reappears. That is why this match is so delicate for Eala, because it is not just about playing well. It is about controlling when the match shifts,